Hey everyone, good evening. I am gardening in the backyard again. Um, Man, you know how you think your day is going to go one way and then it goes a completely different other way, and then you roll through the day faster, and you wake up at 6 a.m. and you already started working, and then you look down and you think you're going to get so much stuff done, and you look down at your clock and it's already noon. And yeah, that's been how it is. And it's the daylight, when we start to lose the daylight hours this time of year, it makes it such a challenge to get out to the gardens in the evenings that I just didn't think I was going to be able to get to the garden and get much accomplished over at the teaching garden. So I'm in the backyard today, which of course my backyard needs just as much attention as anything else does. But I am really seeing some good things happen over here. I've been working on a lot of my plants to really get them up and more healthy, and really cutting back on really really trimming things well, and just really giving this garden the attention that it needs. Now this 50-day transformation thing is really helping with that, because it's getting me to get out in the garden and garden, even when I can't make it to the learning garden because I'm losing the day and all of that stuff. I'm out here in my own garden and getting some stuff done in my own garden, and so it's really making my own garden very happy. So I'm noticing that this pepper plant is really starting to look, it's getting its leaves back, hoping that no little frost comes along and messes with it. But I've been adding stuff to the soil. I added some Epsom salt that the magnesium is good for pepper plants. I added in some ash from our pit after we ran our pit the other day. I am putting in some of that azomite, which is minerals for your soil. And of course, pest management is certainly a part of the problem with those particular plants. I know that it has to be some of the issues that those plants have been dealing with. I deal with I'm pretty sure it's some kind of little spider mite. Also leaf miners in this particular garden compared to the other garden. That's some of the stuff we deal with. But really being out here in this garden and just learning from it this year, I mean, this is the true first season that this garden has ever seen here in my backyard garden, this backyard garden anyway. And so one of the first things I always tell everybody is that your very first season in a backyard, and I suppose this isn't technically our first season, because we did have some pepper plants out here last season. They got brought in, and those are the ones we're kind of hanging into, and they did okay. They put on a few peppers, but me getting involved in this and me bringing this garden to life back here is really taking it into its true first season. But getting to know what pests you deal with, and even with this, I'm doing container gardening for the most part at this time until I get this the chicken area all ready to go. But even dealing with the pre-purchased soil and all of that, you're still having to manage the way the sun hits the yard, how the rain comes in. You're dealing with a different kind of pests than you're dealing with in other gardens or in other yards, or you're dealing with different kinds of predator management, that kind of thing. And so your first several seasons really are just about learning your space, learning where you grow, that kind of thing. And so it's nice to be able to have produce in the first couple of seasons, but if you're learning to grow for market growing or for actual farm business, that kind of thing, it's really valuable just to understand that you're gonna have a few seasons of real learning. The other thing is that if you're not interested in getting into the direct consumer marketing of the whole part of food, urban food farms or market gardens or anything like that, knowing that you're not failing, knowing that you're not dealing with pests more because you don't know what you're doing than somebody that knows what they're doing does. I've been gardening my whole life. I've been gardening as long as I've been old enough to follow my grandmothers out to the garden, and their grandmothers and their mothers out to the garden. I have been doing a little bit of that my whole life. And of course, this time as an adult, becoming an adult and getting involved in it, it's been the shorter period of time in my life. So that's really only been about 10 years that I've been growing that way. But I've been growing pretty much my whole life, and I still make mistakes every single day. I still learn things, new things. I learn something new every single day. And I'm not afraid to teach while I learn, because I think that there's definitely an aspect of that. And that's the best way to learn is to teach. You teach folks that are younger. You teach folks that are, have just begun the spectrum. And I always use that term, the spectrum. You have folks that are just getting started. That can be in anything for that matter. It can be healthy diet. It can be exercise. It can be religion. It can be, you name it. Gardening, of course. But the idea is that you're on this end of the spectrum. You're just getting started. Don't expect yourself to be in competition with this end of the garden over here, end of the spectrum over here. Just understand that everything you learn will get you a little further down the spectrum toward where you want to be. And maybe your end of the spectrum is here, and my end of the spectrum is here, and that's okay. But your end of the spectrum may evolve, and my end of the spectrum may evolve, and that may change, and we may learn more about what the end of the spectrum actually is. But I do say that I want everybody to understand that there is no real failure in farming or gardening, especially when you're talking about just seeds in the soil, and learning about your soil, and learning about your seeds, and learning about and bringing flowers and plants into your backyard, so that you learn more about the butterflies, you learn more about the caterpillars, you learn more about the birds, you learn more, all of that in itself. There's no real failure in just doing it, and the amount of labor that you put into things. I think that we put too much qualitative data around, I spent this many hours doing this particular work and it did not give me the return on the investment. Well, people that are paying to go to a gym, you're putting some labor, getting some exercise, and you're paying to do that. So getting out in your garden, and then if you can make a little bit of money on it by taking it to the farmer's market, and in our farmer's market, it's really inexpensive, especially for hobby gardeners or market gardeners that are only there during very, very specific seasons. So that one beautiful fruit tree they have, or, whatever, that kind of thing. All of a sudden they have the best crop of broccoli they've ever seen, and they show up and super inexpensive, and they bring all the broccoli that they have and sell. It's a great way for kids to get involved, and I just wish more people really understood what the whole thing was about. The holistic idea is about growing food, and every backyard, every city park, every school, every church, every restaurant, everybody should be growing some food. We are not a food insecure country, and there is no reason that we do not have a little bit of our own food growing in our own places, so that we can cut some of the cost of transporting food that ultimately gets thrown away because we're not using it fast enough. So that's my daily rant, I suppose. Anyways, I'm going to get back to gardening a little bit more before it gets dark. I've got the stuff that I need to get a few more of those plants. I picked up several plants from the nursery. Oh, and I also wanted to show you what some of my stuff's looking like. Look at my lettuce. Don't worry, those spots on there are just coffee that I sprinkled over it this morning because there was a few ants around. Look at my kale. Let's see, what else have you not looked at in a while? That's probably the good stuff that's gotten going for a while here. I'm going to go ahead and get the last artichoke planted. I've got some sage, I've got some peppermint, thyme, Cuban oregano. I'm going to get all that stuff planted, some more Toscano kale. I'm going to get that stuff planted, and really looking forward to the rest of my evening, and I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your evening. Be well, and I will see you soon.